1987 was a monumental year for me in terms of video games. Not only was it the year that I got my Nintendo Entertainment System, it was also the year that I was introduced to such influential titles such as Super Mario Bros. And Metroid. But probably the most groundbreaking of them all, and definitely the biggest game changer for me personally, was The Legend of Zelda. Having grown up with the ColecoVision, the games that I was used to were usually single-screen affairs such as Donkey Kong and Burger Time, with the occasional anomaly such as Zaxxon and Pitfall. Super Mario Bros. Was the first platformer that I remember playing where the screen scrolls rather than blip from static screen to static screen, and that in itself blew me away. I hadn't really played anything like it at the time. But it was only several months later when I had watched those god-awful Legend of Zelda commercials on TV, most notably the one with the annoying guy running around a pad-free asylum room, squealing the various names of enemies lurking throughout the game, and calling out for Zelda, 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 which somehow struck a chord with me, and I subsequently begged my dad to buy it. How that terrible and vexatious ad resonated in my mind baffles me to this day, but damn it, it worked. My dad purchased Zelda soon thereafter, and from the get-go, it was clear to me that this was not your run-of-the-mill average video game. With a large world made up of single screens, The Legend of Zelda was far vaster than anything I had ever experienced before. I mean, its enormity was leaps and bounds above every single game I had played up to that point. It took me several days to realize that this wasn't an adventure to be taken down in rudimentary stages, which had become the norm in console video games, and with a save feature, it was the first of its kind on the NES that allowed you to do so with the utilization of a battery built into the cartridge. Once I got the hang of it, Zelda easily became my favorite game, and with the help of my dad, was pretty much the first video game I ever completed. With rolling credits at its conclusion, the finale of Link's massive quest had an almost cinematic effect, and defeating Ganon and rescuing Princess Zelda was unquestionably the highlight of my still young and budding video game career. It was immensely satisfying. It also turned me into a bit of an NES snob, where I only wanted to play more games like it, and only similar adventures such as Metroid, The Goonies 2, and Rygar could even come close to relieving that itch. I found almost everything else I had played around that same time somewhat underwhelming. But it wasn't until the inaugural issue of Nintendo Power had arrived in my mailbox in the summer of 1988 that I had discovered that there was actually a second quest with new dungeons and item relocations. It was almost like a Legend of Zelda remix. Sure, I had noticed the sword next to Link on my save file before after I had conquered the game, but honestly thought nothing of it, and quickly moved on to something else. I ended up deleting the file later on for some unknown reason. Luckily, that first issue of Nintendo Power taught you a shortcut on how to get to the second quest without having to complete the game at all, by simply creating a new save file and naming it Zelda. The magazine also had maps of the first 6 dungeons, along with strategies on how to navigate a familiar, yet completely foreign world. It was so intriguing that I had to put down whichever game I had been slogging through at the time and immediately refocus my efforts on Link's brand new adventure. Now that's replay value.
My experience with The Legend of Zelda was completely different. It was already out for a few years before I got to play it for the first time in the early 90s, and whenever I did put it on, it was usually with the Game Genie so that my 5-year-old self didn't die constantly. Hyrule was the first video game land that I explored and lost myself in, but I was never able to finish the game as a kid, even with the Game Genie. For some reason, the game would freeze whenever I picked up the magical sword, and to make matters even worse, my childhood copy of the game couldn't save. I used to leave my system on overnight to try over and over again, hoping to get to the end, but I never experienced that sweet ending credits roll until I was well into my 20s. By then, I'd found a second copy and finished it for the first time without my favorite cheating device. The idea of jumping into the second quest at that time was laughable given how long it had taken me to actually finish the first one. I'd known about the second quest when I was young, but I have no recollection of how I found out about it. I never saw a single Nintendo Power issue growing up, and a lot of my friends at the time didn't play Zelda nearly as long as I did because they'd moved on to newer systems by the time I was really getting into it. When I was probably 10 or 11, I remember starting a file with the name Zelda and wandering around the second quest for a few minutes, but immediately feeling really overwhelmed. It wasn't until very recently, after playing a Master System game called Golden Axe Warrior, that my interest in the second quest truly came alive. To me, Golden Axe Warrior was a reboot of sorts of Zelda with a new story, puzzles, and items in a brand new world to explore. It got me thinking about the second quest and the idea of visiting Hyrule again for the first time in many, many years, and that was something I knew that I needed to experience.
Watching Hungry Goriya stream the second quest recently and taking in how much she enjoyed traversing Link's alternate adventure only encouraged myself to go through Hyrule's bizarro world once again. I had revisited it about 4 years ago with the intention of making a video comparing the first and second quests, only to put it on the back burner before ultimately abandoning it altogether. Now, with a shared and renewed appreciation for The Legend of Zelda, who better than Hungry Goriya to bring along for the ride during this comparison as we dive into all of the differences between the two quests and immerse ourselves into just what makes this arguably archaic yet innovative adventure so damn special. One of the great things about The Legend of Zelda is how unique and different the game can be played depending on the player. My first quest strategy has always been to immediately slay baddies from the start to earn bombs, quickly nab the 2 heart containers concealed behind granite, all the while collecting rupees left behind in Link's marauding wake. With the young Hylian now at capacity of 5 hearts, the white sword can be obtained from the old man above the waterfall, which happens to be the old codger's same domicile in the second quest. However, these 2 aforementioned heart containers are no longer hidden in the same locations the next time around, rendering this same strategy impossible.
The second quest really limits any increases to Link's life meter by making only a single heart container accessible at the beginning of the game. It's hidden underneath a gravestone, and unlike the first quest, try as you might to find them, no other heart containers can be discovered by bombing or burning trees with the blue candle. This means that by the time you walk into the first labyrinth, the most hearts that Link can have is 4, leaving him 1 shy of being able to pick up the white sword. This forced handicap really kicks up the difficulty heading into the first stretch of the game, forcing Link to push his way through the first dungeon with an inferior weapon and a lot less life to work with.
During the first and second quest, I purchased the blue candle as soon as I earned 60 rupees. Knowing exactly which bushes to burn in the first quest to uncover the many "It's a Secret to Everybody" rooms, where generous moblins reward you with cash, ensures that the 250 smackaroos needed to buy the blue ring will accumulate quickly, and I always make sure that Link dons the white tunic before he even sets foot into the first dungeon. I do the same for the second quest. Many of these money rooms are no longer hidden in the same locations, so those of us unfamiliar with the second quest will have to endure the tedious task of burning a bush, leaving the screen, and then returning to fire up the next one. Pray to the holy fairy of Hyrule that you actually uncover something. Knowing where the 100 rupee rooms are hidden will help early on with buying that ring in both quests. And yeah, the salesman peddling the blue ring is of course in completely different hidden shops. The first quest has him concealed under an Armos statue, while in the second, the secret area is at the northeast corner of the map, which is a 100 rupee room in the first quest. This is right next to the cave that houses the old man, the one who gives you the letter for the old woman, but it's been replaced by a shop in the second quest. The letter is in a far more menacing location the next time around, high up in Death Mountain guarded by a pack of bloodthirsty Lynels. The first dungeon is found in the exact same spot in both quests, and is the only one that shares the same location. The layouts, though, hold no resemblance whatsoever other than aesthetics and the creatures housed within. Level 1's map in the first quest is in the shape of an eagle, while in the second, shaped in the letter E. We'll discuss its significance a bit later. Both dungeons share the same enemies, however, the Stalfos are a bit tougher, now with the ability to hurl swords at Link that mimics the protagonist's full health attack. The boomerang is obtained after taking out some pesky Goriyas in both quests, but the bow is only stored here in the first. The same end boss greets us at the end of the form of Aquamentus. Easy peasy, this labyrinth is simply a gateway into what horrors we'll subsequently encounter as both quests move along.
With 5 hearts in the health meter, the next thing to do is get the white sword. Unlike many other things in the second quest, it isn't hard to track down since it's tucked neatly away on top of the waterfall in the same cave as it is in the first. The increased offensive power it gives to Link in the first quest feels a lot more helpful in terms of the leg up that it provides in battle, but it just barely seems to take the edge off for enemy encounters in the second quest, especially in the dungeons. Level 2 in the second quest is found far away from its place in the forest in the first. It's located behind an Armo statue where the original Blue Ring store is at the dead end on the western side of the lake. Of all the labyrinths that I discovered by checking places I was familiar with from the first, this one was out of pure desperation in hopes of finding the Blue Ring after getting destroyed in level 1. It seemed like a cruel but convenient joke to stumble into a labyrinth instead. Level 2 in the second quest is now shaped like the letter A instead of a crescent moon in the first, and it has the same muted green color and enemy repertoire as level 3 in the first adventure. If you haven't found the white sword or the tunic by now, this dungeon is really trying because it's full of Gibdos and Darknuts that take many hits to kill and deal a ton of damage. It also doesn't help that the stone statues in many rooms are firing away regularly. Manhandla has also been transferred over from the first quest's third dungeon as a mini-boss, so hopefully you've got some bombs handy. In this labyrinth, the item obtained is the whistle instead of the magic boomerang, and it's hidden in a very unconventional way. For the first time ever, walking through solid walls is introduced here, and even though the game does a good job of setting you up to at least try bombing the bottom wall in this room to progress to the next, I'm not sure how anyone would have ever thought to try to force their way through this invisible passage. When I was playing this dungeon, I felt a bit crazy because there's absolutely no indication at any time that walking through walls is even possible. There's no hint of it in the manual or in the map documentation, so I'm curious to know how people first thought to try it. Like walls that can be bombed, walls that can be walked through bear no visible or auditory cues to let you know to attempt this. If you think the whistle isn't worth the time to find here, it has a very unique function in the second quest that it doesn't in the first. Instead of running up against Dodongo for a final fight, a two-headed Gleeok is waiting for Link before the Triforce room. With 2 Triforce pieces in tow, the fun is just getting started.
Did you see the latest Nintendo newsletter?
Whoa, nice graphics. I'd like to get my hands on that game.
You mean you haven't played it yet? We can play it on my Nintendo Entertainment System. It's The Legend of Zelda, and it's really rad. Those creatures from Ganon are pretty bad. Octoroks, Tektites, Levers, too. But with your help, our hero pulls through. Yeah, go Link, yeah, get Zelda.
Awesome.
Intense.
The Nintendo Entertainment System. Your parents help you hook it up. The Legend of Zelda sold separate.
Now with Link's latest toy in hand, much more can be unlocked. If you thought burning bushes and bombing walls was tedious, the whistle introduces a whole new world of monotony. While it is still primarily used as a warping tool, the serene tune of the flute can now uncover secret passageways. Traveling from screen to screen whilst making beautiful music can be repetitive as all hell, but the outcomes are generally rewarding. Secret to Everyone rooms are hidden in abundance, possibly only outnumbered by grumpy geriatrics who insist on you paying for their door repairs when their hovels of solitude are unveiled. But the 2 hidden heart containers are the diamonds to be discovered by the whistle, with one uncovered from the lever-filled desert and the other concealed up in Death Mountain. The lone heart container hidden behind a bush in the first quest doesn't exist in the second, and the final 2 are found in the same locations in both quests, which we'll cover here shortly. Yes, the whistle still serves its purpose from before, as a transport device that warps you to the entrances of previously vanquished dungeons, in fact, the exact same locations as the primary quest. For example, since levels 1 and 2 have already been defeated, the whirlwind that is conjured when Link blows on the recorder will transport you to either level 1 or 2 from the first quest. That's right, instead of warping you to the entrance of level 2's second quest dungeon, you are instead sent to the location of level 2's first quest labyrinth, which works out perfectly as the level 2 entrance has been replaced with a pond, which we all know from the first quest level 7 that a simple toot on Link's whistle will dry up the water, revealing the staircase to level 3. Granted, as the second quest level 3 is located in the same spot as the first quest's level 2, the 2 dungeons share many similarities such as color and its inhabitants. Blue Goriyas infest each, and the magic boomerang is relinquished in both cases. Dodongo is also the head honcho in these 2 similar labyrinths, but that's where most of the resemblances end. The old level 3 entrance has been replaced by a shop the second time around. The map in the first quest is shaped like a...
You know, when you're mugging talk show commentators in bathrooms, always remember to draw those swastikas turning to the right. to the left, always to the right.
while it's the letter L in the second. Like I mentioned before, the magic boomerang is found in the second quest's third dungeon, while the raft is retrieved in the first. Ropes now flicker versus their first quest counterparts, requiring more damage to defeat. The Hungry Goriya makes a cameo begging for food, appearing much earlier than its initial appearance in the first quest's 7th dungeon. The boss in the first quest is Manhandla versus Dodongo, but his lair isn't adjacent to the Triforce room in the second quest level 3, which doesn't conform to any other labyrinth's layout found within the game in either quest. Weird.
The entrance to the 4th dungeon in the second quest is hidden way up in the mountains, and in order to access it, you'll need to have the power bracelet. Conveniently, this won't take much work to uncover since it's found in the same location as it is in the first quest, behind an Armos statue. The level 4 entrance in the first quest is on an island in the middle of the lake, requiring the raft. In the second quest, the 4th labyrinth is instead hidden in the Lost Hills behind a rock, directly south of where you'd head north 4 times to find level 5 in the first quest.
The aesthetics in both the second quest's level 4 and the first quest's level 5 are identical, keeping with the trend of the second quest dungeons sharing the cosmetic look of the nearest first quest ones. As comforting as it may feel to recognize seemingly familiar territory, the 4th dungeon in the second quest is anything but.
In fact, level 4 is one of the most grueling dungeons in the entire game for many, many horrible reasons. This is the first time that the game really starts to raise the bar for enemy difficulty. Not only are there really tough to kill foes from the first quest's level 5 like Pole's Voice and Gibdos, but there are also tons of red and blue Darknuts sprinkled in just to make things even worse. Another new enemy that's exclusive to the second quest are bubbles that have been split into red and blue types. These are awful.
Oh my god, tell me about it. The bubbles are annoying enough in the first quest, temporarily disabling the use of your sword for several seconds. Not too bad, but the second quest really puts Link's grapes in a vice grip. The red bubbles keep you from using your sword forever. The only way to re-enable the use of your sword is by intentionally touching a blue bubble. Oftentimes, these two different baddies aren't even located in the same room, so if you have any hair on your head, expect to pull it out in tufts from here on out.
Exactly. The red and blue bubbles are usually in rooms with both kinds of Darknuts, so you'll often find yourself backed into a corner completely defenseless while you get piled up on. This kind of throttling is bad enough on its own, but there's something a lot more sinister lying in wait deeper in this dungeon in the form of a greedy old man. The first time I ran into this guy, I was pretty worried. It's clear that you have to give him money or life to move on through to the next part of the labyrinth, but I wasn't sure if the life option would take away a bit of health or result in a permanent loss of a whole heart container. I can't say that the first quest ever made me feel fearful or nervous, but here my stomach dropped and my heart picked up the pace because I was short on rupees, and I definitely didn't want to push through at a disadvantage for the rest of the quest.
This old bastard. I don't know what his problem is. Maybe he's just miserable having to live in an underground dungeon riddled with monsters, but he really sticks it to Link here. Naturally, not wanting to permanently surrender a heart container, I chose the 50 rupees, except that I was short on cash after having given the old dude's doppelganger 100 bills to carry a maximum of 12 bombs earlier in the dungeon. Jeez. This then required minutes of tedious rupee farming from some of the most unforgiving adversaries in the game, being that you're trapped in a small area of the labyrinth without a passable route to escape outdoors to earn cash from much easier foes.
Level 4 in the first quest is a cakewalk by comparison. Vires, Keys, Zols, and Gels are like a dream come true after being subjected to the nightmare that is the second quest's 4th labyrinth. Like-likes make their very first appearance in the room that leads to the ladder, which is the only item to be found. In the second quest's level 4, there are 2 items to find, just to twist the knife a little more. The magic book is the first, but can't be used yet since we don't have the wand, and the other is the much more useful raft. What a pain in the ass this was to find. So you think you'd run into it by exploring the regular dungeon, right? No, not here. To get there, you have to go through the most unlikely wall you'd ever think to try to walk through at the back of the Triforce room. The first time I went through this dungeon, I walked around forever trying to find the item, and never in a million years would I have thought to try that. What was worse was that I beat Dig Dogger, got kicked out, and had to make my way all the way back here again just to walk a few more rooms for the raft.
What kind of drugs do you need to be on to even think of walking through that wall? Good lord, how much time did I waste seeking that item out? With the second quest map shaped like the letter D, there are a deluge of monster-filled rooms to explore, as opposed to the much smaller snake-shaped map of the first. Thankfully, the battle against Dig Dogger is nothing to lose sleep over, nor is the Gleeok at the end of the first quest level 4.